Dreams. Now, this topic will somewhat, at least to a degree, counteract or counter-argue what I'd related in why I ultimately met Cecilia. And believe you me, I still have not figured either out completely. There is no 100% surety on my side on what had ultimately happened in the scenario I related for why I ultimately met Cecilia. But what I want to say now about my dreams, and I'm talking about the type of dreams where you go sleep and you have a dream. Now, since I was about 13 years old, I constantly had dreams. You're talking about anywhere from 5 to 10 dreams a night. And I would remember the majority of them very vividly. Now, since I was 13, I constantly had dreams where these dreams would actually give me warnings or insights into scenarios or people. I even had dreams where I would see things that were going to happen. And I've yet to have one dream that did not actually come to pass. The dreams that would show me things that happen would happen as soon as the very next day, to a week, to a month. Most of the dreams, actually all of the dreams except for one, would come to pass in maximum a month's time period. One dream only happened about a year later. The truth of the dream, what I was shown in the dream. And my dreams became so prominent, so important, so accurate, so many things that pastors and other people in the church, and even other people in general, would turn to me, or not turn to me, but if I had a dream about them, they wholeheartedly believed them. Obviously, in the first dream that I'd ever have of a person, they would raise their eyebrows and be skeptical, like any person would. I mean, people are full of nonsense, and really, in all honesty, how often does this actually happen nowadays? And anybody can just make up nonsense. But, once dream after dream keeps coming to pass, people, take hold of it and they believe it. Especially since I haven't had one dream yet that hasn't actually happened or wasn't true. But that is a whole other topic for possibly another book. And on a side note, yes, I do have dreams that are just weird and bizarre, where I just call them pizza dreams. I had too much pizza the night before, and where on earth did this dream come from? But since I was 13 years old, I learned to differentiate between the dreams that were just simply dreams and dreams that were actually meaningful. Now, skipping ahead to when I met Cecilia, in about 2 to 3 years into our friendship, I started to have dreams about her. I never once had a dream about Cecilia before I met her. And in every single one of these dreams, I was clearly shown, despite the scenario that was portrayed in the dream, every single one of these dreams was a warning. It was trying to show me that Cecilia is not who she says she is. She is not doing what she says she is doing. The dreams were trying to uncover the truth for me, to open my eyes. And in the beginning stages of first starting with these dreams, I became exceptionally confused, because up until that point, and you're talking about over a decade at that point of dreams that came to pass. I was completely confused because these dreams actually, I knew that there was a meaning behind it. It wasn't just a dream. But I was completely confused. One reason being because of why I had ultimately, or what had ultimately caused me to meet Cecilia, even though I don't honestly know what really happened there. But secondly, and mostly because of the underlying cause, or the supposed underlying cause rather, of why I was helping Cecilia, what she was supposedly escaping from, and everything just revolving the story that was portrayed to me and to Ria and to everybody else that was involved that was trying to help Cecilia. It did not make sense at all, where we all thought we were fighting and serving this really good cause, trying to help somebody. And yet I was having these dreams as warnings that everything is a lie, that Cecilia is actually very dangerous. And in the beginning with having these dreams, I actually, stupidly, told Cecilia about the dreams. She wasn't fazed by them. She lightheartedly just laughed, and she said to me, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's just my dad. It's a dad that is transmitting or transferring or influencing dreams into my mind, when I sleep. So I will believe his lies about her, and I will then leave her, and then she will become vulnerable." Yes, at first, and with every dream thereafter for a while, I believed her reasoning. But these dreams persisted, and normally, with having so much experience for a decade of dreams, I had learned that if I did not heed the warning of a dream, I would then have another dream. And if I still did not heed the warning, I would have another dream. And this would continue until I finally either ultimately ended up in the disaster that I was being warned from, or I finally did listen. And these dreams never stopped. And but I stopped telling Cecilia about them because I was fully aware that by that point, or at least consciously aware, that I was now questioning if there was actually truth to these dreams. If everything that I was being shown in these dreams was actually the truth, and everything I was seeing while I was actually awake was a lie. This was now, trying to differentiate between truth versus lies, dreams versus reality, where the dreams were actually reality, and reality was actually all just made up. A very complex, very confusing scenario, especially when you're so deeply involved, so deeply connected, so deeply and intensely brainwashed, and so wholeheartedly wanting to believe that the reality that you see is actually true, and that the dreams are just merely just dreams. But like I said, these dreams did not stop, and I put them on the back burner, on the shelf. I thought about them constantly, but I had never actually made a decision to whether I would believe them or not, because I honestly did not know. Cecilia's reasonings for these dreams was so convincing by that point, because after 2-3 years of being brainwashed by her in every way you can think of, in every type of scenario you can think of, I was pretty much incapable of having any reason outside of her reasoning, if that would make any sense. I could not think for myself, because Cecilia was an intruder in my thoughts. And she had molded my thoughts by that time period to just believe everything that she had said. But looking back, after leaving Cecilia, obviously now I realize those dreams were actually true. And I don't know what would have happened if I had have listened to those dreams earlier into this supposed friendship and left Cecilia at an earlier stage. Because the longer I stayed, the more I saw. And obviously the more I saw, the more I could later on then help investigators with in the case. I don't know on this topic as well whether, I don't know whether I was supposed to actually, yes, obviously I was supposed to realize that this was all a lie, but I don't know if I was actually supposed to up and leave. I'm assuming that's what I was supposed to do. I could see pros and cons to having left early, but pros and cons to also not having left early. Either way, I obviously can't go back to the past and change it to see it, what the alternative outcome would have been. The other thing I wanted to relate, also with regards to dreams, from a completely different perspective or different angle, with the complete and insane bombardment of all the nonsense, with all the insane nonsense that myself and Ria and others, mostly myself and Ria, though, that we were fed, that we were bombarded with constantly, whether we were with Cecilia or whether we were at home, wherever we were, there wasn't a day that went by that we were completely submerged into this whole fictional story that Cecilia had created about her life, regarding werewolves, vampires, her involvement in the occult, her abilities, everything from start to finish. There was no time to catch your breath in between scenarios, no time to catch your breath between new pieces of information. There was no time to stop and think for yourself on anything. These things completely consumed your mind. And it reached the degree to where it even also affected me in my dreams. These dreams, I can definitely say, were just dreams. But when I had these dreams, bearing in mind, I also did at first question, hold on, I hope this is not true, because it was relating supposed true life scenarios that Cecilia was supposedly living, into my dreams. These dreams that I was having, I was battling to make heads or tails of, but not for long. I would be confused for about a day or so, and then eventually realize, okay, this was just a dream. It's just because, you're so bombarded with all of this nonsense that it eventually starts to influence your mind while you go to sleep. And I suppose let me relate the dreams before I carry on. I remember several dreams actually, revolving around the whole werewolf scenario. Now, up until just before I started having these dreams, I had already seen, or supposedly seen, Cecilia grow fangs, which I'll relate in another part. But I had seen this whole werewolf scenario was a pretty much daily thing. It was one of the biggest facets or aspects of who Cecilia supposedly was. And in one of the first dreams regarding this, I had actually seen Cecilia completely transform into a werewolf. It was honestly terrifying. I mean, she started transforming slowly. By that point, like I said, I'd only seen her supposedly grow fangs, so there was not much else to it, and I wasn't scared at that time point, because it was just, she was still in technically human form with longer fang teeth. But now in the dream, I started to see Cecilia initially first grow the fang teeth, but they were much longer than what I'd supposedly seen in person. And then her eyes started to change, and then her face started to change, and her ears started to change until she almost completely looked like a werewolf. At first in the dream I wasn't too worried because it was somewhat of what I had supposedly experienced, but ultimately by the time she had almost fully transformed in my dream, I was honestly terrified because it was horrifying, and yeah, I mean, no one wants to be faced with a horrifying monster that can kill you in the most brutal of ways. And dreams like that happened fairly often. Not too often, but often enough. Another dream I had just once, dare I even say it probably worried me more than the other dreams, with seeing Cecilia change into a werewolf. But I had started to grow fang teeth myself. I was starting to transform. It was, in the dream, it was a satanic high day, and next minute I was starting to grow fang teeth. And obviously in the dream, I was actually really worried. I didn't want to change into a werewolf. I knew, or at least I was told, that it would be excruciatingly painful to have your body completely change from human form into werewolf form. And also ultimately I didn't want to be a werewolf. That's just a terrifying thought on its own. Added to this dream, this specific dream with me changing into a werewolf, by that time point when I had this dream, Cecilia had made her abilities, including changing into a werewolf, seem like a thrilling experience, seem like a big deal that was just so awesome to be able to do. She made her abilities, who she was, everything she experienced, seem like it was fun. Seem like, I mean, it even to certain topics or certain things, even Ria herself thought it was cool. I still remember Ria, the first time I heard Ria use the word cool, it was rather strange, because Ria was not the type of person to use a word like that. But even Ria was much more reserved than I am, but even Ria thought these things were starting to sound pretty cool, just to quote Ria there. And so I can see why I would have that dream with myself changing into a werewolf. And I can in all honesty say it would not be cool. But ultimately why I'm relating these dreams now is to emphasize and to try to describe to the extent of how much we were all bombarded with this information, these scenarios, these thoughts, this whole fictional life. It did not stop Not a minute, like I said, to catch your breath. Not a minute to, counteract and have any logical thoughts between them, to think it out. You didn't go with the flow. It was more like a water rapid experience. You were shoved down pretty hard into this flow and you had no choice because there was no chance to even swim upstream on it or in it. And yeah, at the same time, Cecilia always made it out to be a fun thing, a thrilling thing. It was, yes, everything about this whole scenario with Cecilia sounds like living in something from a movie. And often, even during the scenarios, it actually felt like this was all from a movie. But, like I said, Cecilia always made it out to be fun. Aside from the supposed dramatic experiences of trying to save Cecilia, which I'll cover in another topic. It's, your every thought was consumed by everything with Cecilia. So much so that even your dreams, so that it was in your dreams. And as far as memory serves, even Ria started having dreams. Not the same ones as mine, but on other topics regarding Cecilia. Mostly dreams regarding Anya, Cecilia's supposed 3-year-old DID part. But Ria herself was also having dreams. So I can only imagine, and I can only assume that the other members of the groups were possibly also having dreams. It just consumed your life, it consumed you entirely.